Most BBC and most broadcast documentaries are made by smaller companies, and then in the last few days before the broadcast, the BBC puts a sort of stamp onto it, and you get the BBC logo on one side. And sometimes it asks for a change in the script. Sometimes it asks for um, extra details. But for the most part, it's been involved in supervising the development of the documentary, and and it doesn't have it's a cheaper way of maintaining broadcast content. And the documentary Gaza Doctors Under Attack will now be screened on Channel 4 after the BBC refused to broadcast it. And it's controversy that strikes at the heart of British broadcasting ethics, journalistic responsibility, and the duty to bear witness. So on Wednesday, on July the 2nd, Channel 4 will air this documentary, which tells the harrowing stories of Palestinian medics on the front lines in Gaza. But this broadcast is remarkable for another reason. It was originally commissioned but ultimately rejected by the BBC. And this decision has ignited debate over impartiality, censorship, and the public's right to confront deeply uncomfortable truths. Gaza, Doctors Under Attack, was commissioned by the BBC more than a year ago from Basement Films, an independent production company with experience in documenting conflict in Gaza. The film includes first-hand testimony from doctors and paramedics working in Gaza's hospitals during the latest Israeli military assault. It documents allegations that Israeli forces deliberately targeted hospitals and healthcare workers, claims that, if true, would amount to grave breaches of international law. Channel 4 describes the film as meticulously reported, offering powerful evidence that hospitals have become battlefields. And according to the filmmakers, all 36 of Gaza's major hospitals have been damaged or destroyed, with healthcare staff forced to flee, sometimes under fire. Yet, despite commissioning the work and clearly being involved in the development of the piece, the BBC delayed it for months and finally refused to broadcast it. Why? The BBC argues that airing the film risks creating a perception of partiality that would fail to meet its standards of impartiality expected by the public. And the decision was made in the context of an earlier controversy over another Gaza documentary, How to Survive a War Zone, which was withdrawn after it emerged that its narrator was the son of a Hamas official. That documentary was screened by the BBC and then taken off BBC iPlayer. The BBC said it needed time to complete an internal review of such programming. It ultimately concluded it couldn't find a way to broadcast Doctors Under Attack while meeting its editorial standards. But its editorial standards have slipped and slipped and slipped. And when the BBC literally copies copies YouTube videos, for example, and then reproduces them by following the same the same footage or the same shots, and specifically asks authorities if they can make a film like this one, and then denies that it's doing that. There's something wrong with the BBC. There's been something wrong with the BBC for, in my experience now, for about 3 years, and deeply wrong. And I used to work for the BBC. And critics see the BBC and see the BBC's attitude here as an abdication of duty, accusing the BBC of suppressing Palestinian voices under pressure, or of avoiding a subject simply because it's too politically fraught. It's a subject which is being debated at the moment, and the BBC's job is to be presenting things which are current. In contrast, Channel 4 has presented itself as willing to take on precisely this kind of difficult, divisive journalism. Louisa Compton, Channel 4's head of news and current affairs, said the film had been rigorously fact-checked to meet Channel 4's editorial standards and that and to meet the Ofcom broadcasting code. In her words, we know we will antagonize somebody somewhere, but we do it because we believe it's our duty to tell important journalistic stories, especially those that aren't being told elsewhere. Channel 4 insists that the film is not unbalanced propaganda, but a forensic investigation grounded in testimony and evidence. Basement Films, for its part, has thanked Channel 4 for stepping in and has bluntly been critical of the BBC. Its founder, Bender Peer, accused the BBC of silencing journalists and failing its own standards of public service. So, what does Gaza Doctors Under Attack show? It features doctors describing hospitals turned into war zones, operating theatres as battlefields. It offers evidence supporting claims that Israeli forces systematically attack medical facilities despite the clear protection such facilities should have under the laws of war. The production company says over 200 of its Palestinian colleagues on the ground have been killed during the conflict. The subject matter is undeniably harrowing. Channel 4 has openly warned audiences that the documentary is terribly hard to watch and delivered through tears and anguish. But the ethical question is this: should public broadcasters shield viewers from such testimony out of fear that they will be accused of bias? Or is it their duty to present the evidence, however uncomfortable? The broadcast of Gaza Doctors Under Attack on Channel 4 is not merely about one film, it's about the role of journalism in a democratic society. And it raises stark questions for the BBC, questions about caution, fear, and the risk of silence. And Louisa Compton of Channel 4 put it more bluntly: there are times when the same risk is run by not showing anything at all. This is not simply a dispute about broadcasters or between broadcasters. It's a test of whether we as a public are willing to look directly at suffering, even when it challenges our assumptions, our alliances, or our comfort. On Channel 4, on July the 2nd, we're invited to do just that, to be challenged. And I think it's a documentary and a viewing that we should not pass over.